sickos that just is constantly exuding heat. You know? But yeah, I was watching that, I guess it was from back when they were doing the Big Beautiful Bill. And it was this guy in Texas, Tallarico, the guy that beat Crockett in the primary here. And some buddy of mine that I was talking to, you know, we agree on some stuff. We don't agree on some stuff. It's all good. You're not going to agree with everybody all the time and stuff. But he said, you know, this guy reminds me of the Democrats before they kind of went crazy. And so he said, check him out, because I was telling him the Democrats are pretty much all crazy. He's like, not this guy. This guy's different. Check him out. You know? So I was watching, he did like a video called Surrounded, where he had 20 undecided voters. I don't know who these people are, from Texas, sitting around him, and he would make a claim, and then anybody that wanted to debate or dispute that claim could come up to the chair. It's like musical chairs. You had to be the first one there, and discuss it with them. You know, and I got a little bit. I didn't watch the whole. It's like a 90-minute video. But this was just earlier, so I didn't have 90 minutes. I watched like the first 15 of it. You know, I'll give it a watch, because the guy that told me about him, I respect that guy. So I'll give this guy a watch. But I don't know, bro. I don't really have faith in any of these fucking young politicians, bro, in the US. Just very few of them that I have any kind of like, okay, this guy might be all right. You know, for the most part, they're all on my shit list. And I don't know that there's anything that can be done to alleviate that outside of, I don't know. Like I said, I'm an independent. I'm not beholden to any of these parties. You know, I watch the story develop. I watch the cause and effects of the things in real world. And then I make my decision for who I think is the best choice when it comes time to do that. You know? So yeah, I don't agree with some of the things he said, but I'm going to give it a watch to the end. And, you know, I mean, if somebody seems like a decent person, I kind of rate that a little bit higher than what their policy positions all are, so long as they aren't crossing any of my personal red lines with policy positions, for things that I find to be indicative of a deeper failure to think for yourself. You know what I mean? Which is like it's not a parameter you can set and forget. It's kind of one of them things that you have to constantly be on the intake of information to understand the context that you're hearing things in, to then be able to make a judgment decision on. If that makes sense, you know? Did you vote for Trump? If so, are you happy with his term? I did vote for Trump in 2024. Absolutely. And I think Trump's second term so far has been one of the best presidential terms of my life. I don't agree with the war in Iran. I'm hoping he wraps that up. You know, I don't want to do any wars. You know, that was part of why I voted for him. The other part was he was just clearly the best choice. The Democrats, they threw that election. They didn't have any intention of competing. I liken it to a baseball game where it's the seventh inning. You got to pull your pitcher and you're down 100-2. Are you going to take your ace pitcher who's supposed to start tomorrow and put him in the seventh inning when you're down 100-2? No, you're going to dust somebody off who doesn't really matter much and let them get some experience in the big game. And that's what they did to Kamala. They knew that she wasn't going to win. At least you can admit you're against the war. So many conservatives online say how they were isolationists when they voted. Now they can't admit that the war with Iran is a bad move. Well, I don't like war as a foundational belief that I hold. You know, I'm always on the side of negotiate, collaborate. You really don't want to be pounding people out because The people that you can pound out aren't worth pounding out because then you create blowback. And the people that you can't pound out are going to be frisky, just like schoolyard politics. You know, if some twerp steps on your shoes and you're going to fight him about it, then some fucking big giant steps on your shoes. Now you got to fight him about it or you look like a pussy. So in that just being one of the facets of it, but I don't like war, generally speaking. Now, with that said, I do see the Iran thing as being a little bit different. This sounds like my college dating policy. Pound the frisky ones. What up, Rambo? Yeah, I mean, I'm not a real wishy-washy on some of my foundational beliefs, Bogos. I do see what you're talking about. I'm not unsupportive of Trump as a whole, but I don't want this war in Iran, and I don't want it to continue. Now, I can see the silver lining of it, flexing on China and Russia a little bit if we can get out looking the part. But it just, the whole reason the Republicans were the evil party to me for so many years was because I grew up when they lied us into those wars in the desert with, you know, fucking cockhead Cheney and W. You know what I mean? So they I don't fuck with that. That's not my game. I don't like to do that. If you have to use force to get your objectives completed, I would prefer something like we did in Venezuela, right? Real limited, real direct, surgical, the fewest amount of casualties and disruption as possible. It's crazy how close the justifications are to the Iraq war, but they think it will have a different outcome and the war will be done in months. Yeah, well, we'll see, because there's no ground forces. So we could technically walk away from that war whenever we want. I'm not American. If I was, I would have voted for Trump for his second term and now regretted it. Yeah, well, Bogos, where are you from, bro? Your free speech issues strike me as Aussie. I'm Canadian. Okay. Got you. Neighbor to the north. What's up, buddy? I'm in Pennsylvania down here, so putting USA troops on the ground won't be a good idea. No, I think that is crossing the Rubicon for a lot of people who are on the fence about this, if you put troops on the ground over there. So all this tariff stuff fucking over Canada also pisses me off. I can appreciate that. I can understand that. I am a big fan of the tariffs. It sucks that it's fucking you guys over there. Not for nothing. You've had a couple of dumb fucks running your country lately. Not for nothing. I mean, I know we just got over a dumb fuck and the jury's still out about this guy that's in there now. But I mean, you know, you guys had Trudeau for like, what, 8 years? What a fucking disaster. And I think it should piss off Americans too, because your prices will go up. Well, this is the plan. The tariffs are meant to, basically, that's a revenue stream for the federal government. Trump's ultimate goal that he's espoused for the tariff income is to replace federal income tax for everybody making $200K or less, which is about 90% of the country. So, you know, if it raises the prices of some goods that are imported versus I don't have to pay this fucking tax on my income, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I'm the guy's a businessman. I'm giving him room to work. Just like what this war will do to gas prices. It already has. You know, but if we can get a satisfactory end to the war, right, with some control over the strait, or at least a neutral control over the strait, and all the oil that we got from Venezuela, I mean, I think that these are temporary pains. My problem with war isn't the rise of prices. It's the human cost. I don't like to see people get killed. You know, I don't want any American soldiers to be killed. I don't want any, you know what I mean? I don't care if they're Muslim extremists in their country. I don't give a fuck. Go do that in your own country. Enjoy. Have a ball. It's not bothering me. So like, I don't buy the Iran had a nuke and they were going to use it. I don't necessarily buy that. I think this is more about flexing on China, flexing on Russia a little bit, Trump has never liked Iran. That guy never fucking liked that country. So he's going to beat them up a little bit, you know? But I think this is more about other people that aren't Iran, I think is the primary target for perception crafting, if that makes sense. Not saying I agree with it. You know what I mean? But that's I think it is different, but it'll only stay different if they do it differently. So by going over there and entangling us in the fucking desert with troops, that's not going to sit well with even the people who are, you know, giving him a pass on the war or now espousing support for it when originally they were isolationists. I'm personally more of an isolationist militarily. I like the concept of free trade. I like to make deals. I think that is the way to do it. And that's part of Trump's appeal. You know, that was to me. Look at Russia and Ukraine. No one talks about deaths hitting 500K. That is a fucking disaster over there, bro. That is a disaster. But Trump is anti-free trade. What makes you think he's anti-free trade? The tariffs? That's just pro-American trade, sir. If free trade, yeah, that's just pro-American trade. If free trade just means that you set no controls over it, I mean, I don't really see the benefit of that. You know what I mean? America has the largest consumer base in the Western world. If you want access to that consumer base, you should put into the coffers. That's okay. It doesn't have to be free trade. I'm not subscribed or married to the term free trade. I could care less if that's considered free trade or not. You know what I mean? That doesn't bother me. I said free trade was NAFTA when there weren't tariffs. We could all profit. NAFTA was a disaster for my country, sir. Fuck that policy and fuck Bill Clinton. Fuck that shit. NAFTA. That was like the final stroke of destroying our industrial sector. And now we're a service economy where you got to use your brain to make money. You can't just go punch in and do a fucking factory job and raise your family like you could for fucking decades here. So NAFTA was great for the USA. USA wasn't making shit before that anyway. Fuck NAFTA. That was a bullshit deal, bro. I'm not a fan of NAFTA. NAFTA was a disaster. Russia keeps icing their own guys because literally no one other than Putin and some war hawk dickheads wanted any of this shit. I haven't seen anything about that, Schmurder. I'm not disputing it. I just can't comment on it because I haven't seen any of that. USA wasn't making shit before then anyway, unless you want to pay 2 times as much for a car made in the USA. I mean, NAFTA came about during the Clinton administration, which was 92 to 2000. Before 92, you could afford really nice cars in America, you know? Since then, now I'm not saying this is directly related to NAFTA, but this flies in the face of the argument you're making. Since then, the price of cars has gone up a lot and not just tied to inflation. You know what I mean? Fucking ridiculous kind of shit. I'd buy a Chinese EV for half the price with a 100% tariff before I'd buy a shitty Tesla. I go for it. I mean, you know what I mean? I enjoy. That's the beauty of the freedom of choice. I'm not buying a Tesla because they're close to 100,000 for a car. That doesn't make sense to me to do. Car's not, it's not rubbing my feet or sucking my balls. Why would I pay so much for it? That doesn't make sense to me. When you can get a Honda for a third of that price. That's because it's made in America. Well, okay. I'd rather buy a horse than a Tesla. Listen, I'm a support. I like Elon. I think Elon's on the right side of a lot of things. You know what I mean? I think he's also a very important person that's alive right now. You know what I mean? So I don't have anything against Tesla other than they're just not affordable. You'd want to pay tariffs on that Honda, but you'd want to pay tariffs on that Honda. Listen, when